You are listening to the Omnicast. I'm your host, Tyler Jacobson, with are we ready to say it? Are you ready to be a co-host?
Yes, I am.
That makes me a co-host too, as well.
Well,
I just,
you're the president. I'm the vice president
I
host.
don't think that's true. You have all of this knowledge and all of this talent that you are always asking me questions. And I feel like I need to start asking you questions and unlocking your talent. Also, you've been doing this longer than I have. So I feel like you're asking me these questions for the benefit of the audience. But they're really good questions, by the way. Like, I can't think of any good topics. All of the topics for the last few shows are really coming from Susan. And so bless you for that. So which band are we going to argue about this week?
Well, ladies and gentlemen, we've moved on to the 80s. No, we're not going to talk about a band today. Are you crazy?
What? All right. So the question today, the topic is when is it appropriate to start paying? Well, what was it? When do you know? How do you know when to start paid ads from your
Yes.
business?
How do you know when you've maxed out your potential or audience size or whatever it is organically, and you really need to invest in order to grow your audience or achieve whatever other goal you have?
So Susan Berry of Hive Marketing that helps hotels with top line sales and revenue goals. Did I get that right, by the way?
Very good.
Okay, I've heard it a couple times. So give me an example that I can draw off of here, because when is it time to start advertising? Probably now. I don't know.
Right. Okay. So I think what I need to do first is establish the baseline, sort of tell you the story of my journey, which is the most overused word in the world and yet accurate in this case, with content creation and paid advertising. Can I do
Yes,
that first?
I would love that.
Okay, so when I started my company in the spring of 2009, I did it to do social media marketing for hotels. That was the express purpose of starting this business. And it was because during those days, the wild, wild west of Facebook and Twitter, I had executed a really successful campaign for a hotel I was opening. So I just automatically assumed I was a social media genius. I was maybe a little bit ahead of the hotels that I wanted to work for. So I had to like scramble and piece together a bunch of other clients. And over that time, ended up doing social for a huge variety of industries and businesses, retail, boring stuff, exciting stuff, sexy stuff, whatever. When I was doing all that, starting in 2009, it was all about the content. Like, you'd read articles, everyone's like, just have great, compelling content, and then your world will change. Make something really shareable and entertaining and funny, be transparent and authentic. All of these things, it was all driven by content. I am a creative person and a writer. Content comes naturally to me. So I was like, hell yeah, I can make this happen. So that my business continued to grow, and I picked up all kinds of different clients and was doing great, interesting content, growing their audiences. And in about, I think it was September of 2013, my monthly metrics reports that I gave to my clients started showing that reach and engagement were taking a freaking nosedive into the ground. I started writing about it on my blog, like, what's going on? What's happening? I predicted and was correct that Facebook was starting to throttle engagement in order to push people to paid advertising. And that pissed me off because I had built my business on being an affordable way to help these companies expand their audience without having to throw thousands and thousands of dollars at it like they would with traditional advertising, or even, pay-per-click on Google or banners or whatever the stuff was. So, that started to become less of an effective thing, obviously, because engagement was getting throttled. And then for a long time, people were like, just throw a couple bucks at every post, just boost everything with a, $5 here, $3 there, whatever, and you'll reach more of your existing audience. So there's more to it than this, but that was about the time that I started to step back from social exclusively and to broaden my offering and do a lot more generalized consulting, helping hotels grow their revenue and all that stuff, because I felt like it wasn't working anymore. And I felt like I couldn't go back and say, hey, this once inexpensive way for you to grow your audience now costs twice as much. Enjoy, here you go.
Right.
So it just stopped. It didn't feel like it was making sense to me. I mean, I've since kind of dabbled in doing social content and doing paid advertising. Like, one of my favorite tricks for hotels, I don't even know if this is still a thing, but it used to be to target people in their geographic area whose relationship status was set to engaged with book your wedding here kind of content. So, I've done a little bit of that stuff, but I've never really gone back like you have and tried to become an expert on that type of paid advertising, because I think, honestly, I have a bad attitude about it. So now that I, am trying to grow my business and help my clients grow their businesses, I want to get over myself. I want to understand when content creation has been maxed out and you really need to start throwing money behind it. How do you decide that?
Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there.
Sorry, I gave you a long story.
No.
I want to explain the backstory.
No, it's great. And I think I understand why you're asking that question. I think I understand how to answer it too and engage with you in a conversation around it. But when you were talking about targeting, is it possible to still target engaged people in this geo so you can say, hey, book your wedding here, or your book your block of rooms here? You absolutely can still do that. Isn't it also funny that where you were in 2009 being ahead of the social media curve for hotels, and I even see this. Maybe it's because my wife was in hotels for so long, but like, you still see, like, guys, you're still not even where you should have been in 2009.
Yeah, for sure.
My biggest thought is social media giveth, social media taketh away, right? Because prior to social media, you didn't have really that share of voice in any sort of conversation, especially not that cheaply. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's almost like you're at a dinner party and you're having maybe an interesting conversation, and all of a sudden Hilton shows up and says, did you know that we have a pool available for a summer getaway? You're like, right? Like that never would have been possible prior to social media. Like, they wouldn't have been able to enter those conversations. They do it for free at that point, right? Mm-hmm. They had a very large presence. And by the way, I think there's a lot of value to that presence. There is a social media network that I really thought had an opportunity to displace Facebook called Ello. Do you remember Ello? ELLO?
Kind of.
They're still around. As I understand, it was like one of the investors or the CEO of Kid Robot developed it here up in Boulder, and it got off to such a good start. People were on there. I made it my platform where I would spread lies. I was really enjoying it. Legitimately, like, if you can go back there and find it, those lies are still there. But a vow after, like, being open to not let any businesses be. And I'm like, well, that's it. Your social media network is done. That's how a lot of us identify ourselves, whether we like to admit it or not. We identify through the brands that we engage with, through the bands that we engage with, through the media that we consume.
How would they ever generate any revenue?
I don't know. But that's about their business needing something rather than their customer needing something. And so I'm speaking on the customer end. I think we actually like having brands around us. We like an easy way to know that there's new styles out there, or that there is a new product out there that can make our business life easier, or like, yeah, Penn and Teller in Las Vegas at the Rio. Sure, I'll go to that. Thanks for advertising it, So I think we actually like that. I actually think that's what made it so that Ello wasn't a true competitor to Facebook, because why would you want to be there? There's not even a brand there to pull me into it. Because I will give you another example, because I tend to be long-winded. MySpace, one of the first interactions I remember on MySpace when I was there was REM did an album listening party there. So there you have essentially a brand saying, come over here to this platform and experience this with us in a way that you really haven't experienced things before. That brand pulled me into it. So my premise is that prior to that, let's go back to where all of us Gen Xers and everybody before exists. Advertising at a low rate, at a discount, simply wasn't an option. We didn't get to enter those conversations for free. If you didn't have much budget for advertising, you're looking at the Yellow Pages, which was actually kind of expensive at that point. You had like penny traders. You could put a flyer up at your local grocery store on their flyer board, and nobody's going to give a shit. It's not going to make your business. It's going to be useless. You're going to spend money on paper that's never going to give you any sort of return. So social media is an amazing thing, and especially back then before they started throttling your voice. Creating great content is always, and it still is, it's the thing that you need to do, period.
I totally 100% agree.
But no matter how great your content is, and I won't say no matter how great your content is, your content, the better it is, the more organic reach it's going to get. The better your product is and your audience is, the more organic reach you're going to get. But it's still going to be a fraction of the people that it could reach if you put some money behind it.
And it's artificially throttled. That's the part that pisses me off. If it's just a matter of sort of, and when I say pisses me off, I'm like not in my heart, but that's a frustrating part. If it was just a scorecard of this content is better than this content, so you get more eyeballs than the bad content, or than, what you understand what I'm saying, that's fine with me, merit-wise. It's when really great content cannot find an audience, or can't find the audience it deserves, versus these crappy garbage companies throwing tons and tons of money and able to get so much bigger of a share of audience. I mean, That's a silly argument. I get how commerce works, but that's the shift in how those platforms worked that made them less valuable to me.
So my friend David Soto, because I bitched about this same throttling when it was happening. My friend David Soto was, he pushed back on me, and he's been on this podcast before. He's an extremely smart guy. He pushed back on me and essentially was like, good marketers are going to absorb this and then work around it. And one of the ways that you can consider this is every time that they throttle the reach of a business, they're also doing, they're doing it to every business. They're not just throttling your business. They're doing that to everybody. So it's a pretty fair landscape at the end of the day. You are having the same problem that your competitor is having. Also, the people who are willing to say, yes, this is now a barrier, but I have an opportunity to pay my way into this and pay for more visibility. The companies that are willing to do that are now setting themselves apart from the B players and the C players who simply aren't willing to do that. Right? So why would you
afford to? Yeah.
Well, if you can't afford to do that for your business, then your problem is not social media reach. Sorry.
Well, except for, I don't want to get too far off on this tangent, but I just feel compelled to make this point. 10 years ago, this was not a line item in any budget. And now it is. So did people start... Right, I understand that, but were people able to justify a price increase based on the fact that they now have to exist on social media? Probably not. So, if you're making the argument to an individual business owner to say, yeah, you just have to take home, $20 $25,000 less in profit this year, or whatever. I made that number up, but whatever it is.
The CEO, the CMO, the board, anybody who can say, yes, we have to justify this because these conversations are taking place in budget meetings across our industry right now. And there's a lot of people in our industry who are not going to put in that line item. Great. Let them have that limited visibility while we're going to go out there and get the elevated. I know.
Right.
I know you.
No, I mean,
I know you get it.
There's a difference between Delta Airlines and Joe's Coffee Shop. You know what I mean?
But even
the margin is different.
Yeah, I know. But even Joe's Coffee Shop has other coffee shop competitors around. They still have to fight for that audience. And if social media is actually what brings them customers, okay, great. This is your opportunity to really get out there and really exploit and do things that your competitors are simply unwilling to do, unwilling to make that budget for.
That actually makes an interesting point. As we have talked about a million times before, I work in a pretty specific industry with most of my customers, and that is hotels. And what I feel to be true, but I'm willing to be wrong, is that for hotels, a presence on social media sites is table stakes. It does not drive revenue.
What is it? Then what's the value of it?
It's that they look bad if they're not there.
To who? I mean, that's the thing. Is it part of that buying? Is that part of that buying decision? Do you go and look at social media of hotels before you will book?
No, but I'm a weird case because I don't pay for hotels.
See, I would have thought you would have been a weird case in the other direction where you would have been absolutely, because that's actually where that's part of your part of the work that you do.
Right. I mean, I guess if I were like selecting a hotel in a place I hadn't been before where I didn't know anyone, then I potentially would. That just doesn't ever happen. You know what I mean? It's a terrible example.
And so but you know what? I hear this justification in a lot of different spaces is, yes, it's table stakes. We need to have it because it looks bad if we don't have a good active social media network. And I'm like, who looks at that? Who looks at that as part of their buying decision? Frankly, I'm probably, I think I mentioned a million times that I'm going to England and France here in a week or so. And I'm like, yeah, I'm so excited.
I am too.
But when we were looking at hotels, I didn't go to that hotel's website. I definitely didn't go to their social media. I'm like, is it in the area that I want? Is it a price I can afford? Does it look like it's going to be a comfortable stay? Cool. I could give a shit if they're paying somebody $40,000 a year to, I don't know. Hey, it's getting cold here. Make sure you wear your jacket.
Excuse me. So the question, there's more to this table stakes thing. I don't mean to take us off topic, but there's something
Listen to this podcast before.
I know, it's always off topic. There's something around this idea that, first of all, it's not just the end user consumer who's, I have no idea. Seriously, there's a murder happening somewhere.
Yeah, it sounds like gunshot.
Like, why is this banging happening? I have no idea. So anywho, I think part of the thing with table stakes is not just the consumer's table stakes, but all of the stakeholders in the project. I get more pressure from owners and investors in hotel properties about social media presence than I ever have, thought existed from somebody who's actually looking to buy.
Right.
It's like they think it's a magic trick. Like, why aren't we on Facebook?
Right. And what do you expect from it? And so then it's going to be much harder to justify that line item expense that doubled if you don't even know why you're doing it other than it being a vanity play or some sort of like unmeasurable. And that's the dumbest thing about it is that it shouldn't necessarily be a vanity play because this is one of the most measurable things that your company has ever been able to execute on, and then say, what did we accomplish for this? So that's the thing, is it shouldn't be a big question mark. It shouldn't be that South Park thing where it's like, get on social media, step 2, question mark, step 3, profit. Right? Like you actually
Exactly.
have more details about step 2 than almost anything you're doing.
Mm-hmm. It's true.
Oh my goodness. Yes. No, I understand. So yes, it can be very difficult if you can't tie it back to revenue. You can't tie it back to, yeah, if you can't tie it back to revenue, it's definitely going to be a hard line item to do.
Mm-hmm.
You should definitely be able to say, this is accomplishing something for us. We know what it's accomplishing. And look, everybody just got limited. Everybody just artificially got limited to 2 feet tall, but we can pay to be 3 feet tall or 4 feet. And if we do that, we're going to have only a couple other people who are 4 feet tall. Everybody's going to be restricted to 2 feet. It's like, yeah, pay that bill. Go do it.
I think there's also maybe some value in not authority, credibility on social, that if you have a presence in all of these different places, your business looks more credible. What do you think about that?
You know what Susan, what do I think about that?
I don't know. Tell me. Answer the question.
Really? Okay.
Yes.
I'll answer it. To who? And how do you measure that? I mean, again, it's like, well, they haven't posted anything in a month. They must be out of business. Really?
No, but when I see that, I think they must be slack, or they must be poorly run or disorganized.
Why are you there in the first place? Like, you've already been through something. This isn't the top of the funnel, right? You're already in the decision-making process. You already understand their product enough to be able to say, yeah, this is something I'm interested in. There's value here for me.
Right. And then I go to their Instagram and see they haven't posted in 9 months and think, oh, well, these guys are idiots. Let me move on to their competitor.
Really? But has that ever happened to you where you're like, they haven't updated their Twitter account, so I'm going to buy from somebody else?
I mean, not as much with Twitter. I think Facebook is the one.
Let's say
yeah,
Facebook.
Facebook is the, yeah, right. No, I get it. Facebook is the one that I think it's table stakes now. I think you have to be there.
Let's get away from think and say, have you actually ever changed your buying decision that you can remember because somebody hadn't posted on Facebook, a company hadn't posted on Facebook? They had essentially a dead presence. It was there, but it wasn't updated.
Yeah, I don't know if I have or not. I think more of my observation of that has to do with evaluating businesses. So
so let me ask you that, because when we're talking about value, what is that evaluation that you're looking for other than just slackness? Like, you're saying, like, what are you evaluating?
Well, so I guess an example of this, I have to tread carefully because I don't need to get into issues about revealing what hotels I'm talking about. But, like, one of the things I do pretty often for hotel owners is do a competitive survey of the online presence of, say, 10 hotels in a marketplace, if they're looking to buy one of them or sell one of them or reflag it or change a management company or whatever it is. And there's definitely a negative value score on the evaluation for folks who don't have a consistent presence, or seem to have it's not even that, it's that it's slapdash. Like, if somebody posts once per month, but that's what they do, that's different to me than we posted every day for 2 weeks and then we didn't post again for 7 months and then we posted once and now we haven't posted since. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, to me, it gives off disorganized, don't have a plan, don't have their arms around whatever it is they're trying to do here. So what else is under the hood that I need to find? Then go dig deeper.
Okay, I think that's fair enough. But the other problem that I see there is that you're also not looking at it from the consumer's point of view. You are looking at it from a management point of view.
Right.
You're looking at it from an organizational. Yeah, right. So as somebody who would just rent a hotel room.
Right.